the Hindu. Okay, so here it is, cannot legalize same-sex marriage, says Supreme Court bench. So there's a big judgment coming over here that they are not legalizing same-sex marriage as per Supreme Court bench. Now, what are the opinions behind? So a constitution bench of the Supreme Court on Tuesday held that only the legislature can recognize or regulate same-sex marriage. The bench reasoned that since there was no fundamental or unqualified right to marry, the court cannot intervene. So, however, the bench failed to reach a consensus on providing even long abiding relationships between same sex couples. The status of legally recognized civil union, that is, this was despite all five judges on the bench unanimously accepting that it was time to end discrimination against same sex couples. The Chief Justice of India, who became a minority on the bench with Justice Kaul, declared that three people had a fundamental right to form relationship and the state was obligated to recognize and grant legal status to such union so that same-sex couples could avail themselves of the material benefits provided by law. However, the Justice S.R. Bhatt and Hima Kohli, in their opinion, backed by a separate one, who formed the majority judgment, held that an entitlement to a legal recognition of the right to union, attempt or to marry or civil union conferring legal status upon the parties to the relationship can be only enacted through law. Now, LGBTQ community or activists voicing their disappointment in the Supreme Court verdict on same-sex marriage. The LGBTQ activists and legal experts said that whatever recognition have been granted in the minority judgments were good and welcome, but not enough. So, what else they are saying? Just as the Supreme Court was about to pronounce its judgment on the same-sex marriage case, LGBTQ community members got into a huddle on the apex court, ready to unfurl banner posters in anticipation of a favorable verdict. That means the community was expecting what outcome that was favorable on their support. However, activists and community members could not hide their dismay after the court held that the question was best left to Parliament. So now, what have they said? That this is now left to the Parliament. So none of the observations made by the CJI or the bench will help in daily struggles when I am denied the entry into a hospital, say, or when my friend or partner is in critical condition. Now, Adi, a gay student who runs a queer collective at DU, said, "My parents are worried about my future. I don't know how to tell them what my future looks now." Now, what are these people or the activists further looking for? So many said their struggles for legal recognition to get married and raise a family has been going on for several past decades, and they were prepared to fight for many more years to come. Then another person who was there while the verdict was going to come, he said that the court would make same-sex marriage legally acceptable, allowing him to marry his partner. This is what he hoped for. He added that while the apex court had earlier delivered landmark judgments such as the one in 2018 which decriminalized homosexuality, its order on Tuesday showed that the court had failed to take the next logical step. That means decriminalizing homosexuality was the first step, and the next step was the same-sex marriage. So they were expecting that the Supreme Court judgment would be in their favor. However, the judgment was nowhere in the favor of the community. What else? Now, just because we are different, this is one of the person from the community. Just because we are different doesn't mean we are wrong. I would really want people to see the world from our eyes and know how to deal with our struggles. Then they will understand the challenges we face at every step of our lives, and this would bring about real change in the society. So they are talking about their challenges, and what they wanted was that the court should have given the judgment in their favor so that they would have reap the benefit of that judgment. Now, moving on to page number 12. A case for marriage equality, the legal argument for the same sex marriage. Now, on March 12th, the center filed an affidavit in the Supreme Court frowning upon same sex marriage and invoked the accepted view that marriage is always between a biological man and a woman, and it is termed as a holy union or a sacrament and sanskar. In India, many hold the view that the issue should be debated by the parliament, not by the court. More than 20 retired judges issued a statement saying the legalization of same sex marriage will strike at the very root of the family system. That means they are saying what marriage is considered to be a holy union, and it is referred as a sanskar, and this is only possible between a biological man and woman. And that such sensitive issue concerning the society at large be debated in the parliament and state legislature as well. The union law minister argued that the issue should be left to the wisdom of the people. What else? But this will never happen, as the union government has made its position clear on the legalization of same-sex marriage. That means the position of the union government is clear about the legalization of the same-sex marriage and holds the view that cute people like me will wreak havoc on social institutions with our demands. So, what is the government stand? The government stand is a clearly no for same-sex marriage. Parliament will never enact such a law. Why? Because government is not favoring this decision of same-sex marriage. So this is statistically impossible that they are going for any law or act in the parliament. Citizens with equal rights. Let us examine some of these arguments. First, it is argued that legalizing queer marriage will destroy the concept of family, which is the fundamental building block of society. For long, queer people had to deal with their rights being granted as gifts from heteronormative society. But no more, we are equal citizens of the country and deserve the same rights as cisgenders, heterosexual people. Queer people are demanding equal rights, not just of marriage, but of horizontal reservation and protection from natal families. We don't demand these as a legacy to be bestowed upon us by the society, but that they be accorded to us as equal citizens of this democratic nation. It is also argued that this is not a matter of judicial interference, but one of the interpreting the statutes. For laypersons and lawyers alike, the interpretation of statutes is an art. It is not rare to find headlines with rulings saying that frozen parathas are not rotis or that Sachin Tendulkar is an actor, not a cricketer. These examples simply show that how lawyers often bend over backwards to interpret statutes in in a way that fits their case. There is no reason that statutes cannot be interpreted creatively in favor of fundamental rights. It is true that laws relating to marriage have a religious genesis. However, Indian law on marriage is a mixture of common law and religion. So, what they are saying is that when it comes to marriage in India, it is a mixture of what? Common law and, just a minute. Okay, so in India, marriage is a mixture of common law and religion. While traditionally marriage under Hindu law is a sacrament, it stopped being so when divorce was introduced. That means initially the marriage in Hindu system was inseparable. So we introduced divorce laterly, and once we introduced divorce, the author wants to say that from there onwards, marriage in Hindu law has stopped being sacrament. Marriage is now nothing but a status conferred by law. The court said in Sabarimala case that religion must give way to constitutional morality. Though a review of the judgment is pending, nevertheless, most parties in the marriage equality case before the court are those who want to get married under Hindu Marriage Act. Now, the queued relationships were not an aberration in Hinduism, as scholars have demonstrated. The remaining petitions are filed under the Special Marriage Act. That means the same sex marriage legal arguments are pushed under Special Marriage Act. Now, the Special Marriage Act, say for Zainab Patel's petition, which argues for marriage equality under all religious laws. So they are saying for marriage equality under all religious laws. It is also argued that the laws pertaining to marriage necessitate procreation. That means, so this is what I said. In Hindu, the marriage is, it is basically for three reasons. One is your procreation. One it is considered as a union, a holy union between a biological man and a biological woman. And the third one is it is considered as sanskar. So what is happening is that here the author is of a similar opinion that the marriage necessitates procreation. While this may be true, there seems to be no attempts to take away marriage rights of heterosexual married couples who do not procreate as per mutual consent. While entering into a queued relationship, both parties are aware that they will be unable to procreate. This is called social or circumstantial infertility. That means you can talk about social infertility or circumstantial infertility. The term was initially coined to describe women who did not have children despite no medical condition and is now used in the context of queer people too. If both parties decide to marry with knowledge that one or both of them are impotent, there cannot be a case for taking away the right merely because they are queer. It is also said that conventional conceptualization of family and marriage are facing evolutionary challenges. And what are those? This argument is based on the idea that a family comprises of two parents of opposite sex and their two children. This arguments make it seem as though new forms of marriage which are non-heterosexual are new. They are not. Uh, the Matrikarar, the other form of alternative familial structures, have existed for a long time in the subcontinent. A legitimate legal need. This is not to argue that marriage will lead to pure liberation. In fact, marriage does not obfuscate but lays bare the caste hierarchies that emboldens discrimination and segregation. But despite being a faulty institution, marriage is a legitimate legal need in order to file taxes jointly. So, a number of issues will be coming ahead. That is, how will such kind of marriage be legitimized depending upon the legal needs, how or who will file the taxes jointly, who will inherit the property, how the bank accounts will be opened, how will the nominees be chosen for insurance policies. Few people cannot wait until society thinks it is acceptable for us to have rights. We refuse to be polite citizen. We'll continue to be unapologetic about our sexuality and we'll continue to challenge widespread notion of respectability of marriage and procreation. We refuse to cower in the terror of knowing that the only way we can survive is if we are smart, lucky, or are fighters. Now we demand that the notions of family and traditions be grounded and notion of acceptability and respectability be demolished. Legal recognition of cuteness and love should not be opposed by the state or by some supposedly well-meaning proponents of the doctrine of separation of powers. Cuteness and cute love deserve not just legal recognition by the state, but to be celebrated. Moving on to the next one. Okay, so the bench refused to tinker with the Special Marriage Act. That means the complaint that was filed, or you can say the same-sex marriage, legalization of same-sex marriage was brought. It was brought, or the petitioner brought it under Special Marriage Act, of which the bench has refused to make changes. Now, Chief Justice said it was within the legislative domain to rid the 1954 Act of its institutional limitations. Other than that, Justice Bhatt found the petitioner's plea to read various provisions of the Act in a gender neutral manner for enabling same sex marriage unsustainable. The majority view held that the court's judgment decriminalizing homosexuality in 2018 did not extend to legal recognition of true unions. In just a minute. Okay. In his minority opinion, the Chief Justice held that the right to form a union was a feature of fundamental right to choose partner and lead a dignified and meaningful life. Equality cannot be denied to same-sex couples on the basis of their sexual orientation, he said, emphasizing that queer persons have the right to form abiding relationship. He held that queerness was a natural phenomenon, neither urban nor elite, adding that the conception of marriage was neither universal nor static. It is insufficient if people have the ability and the freedom to form relationship unregulated by the state. For the full enjoyment of such relationship, it is necessary that the state accord recognition to such relationships. Justice Call agreed that the legal recognition to same-sex marriage was a step forward towards marriage equality. That means the concept of marriage equality is here, and marriage equality would have been achieved had same-sex marriage been legalized. He noted legal recognition aids social acceptance, which in turn increases full participation in public spaces. He said that the next step in due course would be to create a regulatory framework or an edifice of governance to give meaningful realization to the right to enter to a union, whether termed as marriage or a union. Both judges urged the Centre to constitute a high-powered committee to set out the scope of benefit available to such unions. The majority of judges on the bench, however, held a different view. Previous judgment of this court have established that queer LGBT couples do have the right to union or relationship, be it mental, emotional, or sexual, flowing from the right to privacy, right to choice, and autonomy. This, however, does not extend to a right to claim entitlements to any legal status for the union or the relationship. So, a secutor of this is that the court cannot enjoin or direct the creation of such regulatory framework resulting in legal status. So, all in all, what they mean to say is that any decisions regarding same-sex marriage should be sought in the parliament, and it is not just based on the hands of the courts. Okay. Now, this article is also enjoined with that article. The Constitution Bench, which delivered a majority judgment in the same sex marriage, was divided in its opinion on whether unmarried couples, including the same sex partner, can jointly adopt children or not. So, the Chief Justice held that the regulation, that is 5.3 of the adoption regulation, which bars unmarried partners from being prospective adoptive parents. That means the regulation of 5.3 bars unmarried partners to be prospective for or of being adoptive parents. Was ultra-virus, the Juvenile Justice Act and the violative of the fundamental rights of the cute couple. Now, these regulations only permit persons to adopt in an individual capacity and not jointly as an unmarried couple. The majority views, however, said that the regulation was not void. Other than that, Justice Bhatt said that the Central Adoption Resource Authority, that is CARA, and the center should appropriately consider the realities of the de facto families where single individuals were permitted to adopt and then start living in a non matrimonial relationship. In an unforeseen eventuality, the adopted children in question could face exclusion from the benefits otherwise available to adopted children of married couples. That means those children who are, coming under these couples, these children would have or would not be able to avail the benefits that would be provided to the other children who are from the married couples. The Chief Justice noted that the regulation by 3 in express terms excluded unmarried couples from adopting by prescribing the condition that the couple must have been in 2 years of stable marital relationship. That means there is a clause for people who are going for adoption that the couple must have been in a 2 years of stable relationship. He observed that the Juvenile Justice Act, however, did not preclude unmarried couples from adopting. That means unmarried couples can also go for adoption. Now, he noted that the assumption that only married couples could provide a stable environment to children was not backed by data. Unmarried relationships cannot be categorized as fleeting relationships which are unstable by their very nature. Marriage is not necessarily the bedrock on which families and households are built. So, the judge is of the opinion that marriage should not be considered as the bedrock on which the families are built. That means families could be built other than being in marriage. So it is clarified that the reference to a couple in Regulation 5 include both married and unmarried couples, including the cute couples. In bringing the regulation in conformity with this judgment, the CARA is a liberty to ensure that the condition which it prescribes for a valid adoption serves the best interest and welfare of the child. The welfare of the child is of paramount importance. Hence, the authorities would be at liberty to ensure that the familial circumstances provide a safe, stable, and conducive environment to protect the material well-being of emotional sustenance of the child. That means all these things need to be referred to, that is safe, stable, and conducive environment for emotional sustenance of child. Now, dejected and disappointed, activist says fights will go on. So, as the Supreme Court's constitutional bench, that was led by the CJI, began pronouncing its judgment in the historic marriage equality case. That means we can talk about the marriage equality case. What have they said? Kajal and now this is a case study. A lesbian couple currently on the run and forced to hide the relationship in their own hometown. The pair battled confusion, fear, anxiety as the judgment started coming through only to be left with disappointment. Leaving it to Parliament to decide the fate of our future, seems unfair. That means now the whole thing goes on to Parliament. That is how the government is going to take on these things. Now, few couples, petitioners, and activists said that disappointment was an understatement as a description of their feeling. Transgender person said the recognition of same-sex marriage would have meant so much more for their community given how routine violence is from their native families. LGBTQ activists and legal experts added that whatever recognition had been granted in a minority judgment were good and welcome, but not enough, noting that most of it had been laid down in the previous judgment and had been said before. But activists across the board maintain that they will continue fighting for their rights. That means the fight is not over till here, since the Supreme Court has rejected the same-sex marriage thing, but they are saying that the fight will continue. So the petitioner in the case told that we are deeply disappointed by the judgment today. Though the court has reiterated that few couples have the right to form relationship, they stopped well short of what legal recognition. On a personal level, we feel proud that we fought this battle. Though we lost, lots of dinner table conversations were initiated because of this case. So we remain hopeful that one day we have full marriage equality. So they are of the opinion that they are in near future, you can say that the same sex marriage or marriage equality could be achieved. Other than this, Supreme Court had now gone to ways, considering that the government has not been supportive for our rights, that means for the rights of the LGBTQ community. Historically, the Supreme Court being the upholder of the Q rights, the Supreme Court has failed to deliver on its responsibilities, but even for queer couples who are not currently thinking about marriage or children, the judgment came as a blow, even if not an expected one. The Supreme Court knows full well that the government is opposed to the idea of giving us our right. Even then, how can they hand it back to a government committee? That means when the Supreme Court is not taking up the idea of same-sex marriage, then the petitioners are of the opinion, why is it handed over to the government committees, especially one that will most likely end up having cisgendered people in decision-making positions. So they are saying that the people who are in decision-making position are not the one who are going to think about their emotions. So had the Supreme Court pronounced the judgment in the favor of the queer community, it would have made them fight against their families much easier, and there would be no need for police intervention. So what are the queer community or the people from the queer community are of the opinion? They say that if Supreme Court had given the judgment in the favor of them, they would have fought with their families, easily. Why? Because there would have been no police intervention. Fine. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Okay, ST status for Meiteis examined and rejected in 1982 and 2001. Government records show. So, a proposal on the inclusion of the Meitei communities in the scheduled tribe list has been examined and rejected twice over the last 4 decades. That means in 40 years it has been declined 2 times. And when it happened, it was once in 1982, and this was by the Office of the Registrar General of India, and again in 2001 by the government of Manipur. The Union and the Manipur government have not made this information public during the ongoing ethnic conflict in the state, nor presented these records in the Manipur High Court. In fact, officials of the Tribal Affairs Ministry fished out these historical documents just days after controversial Manipur High Court order to send a recommendation on the ST status to Meiteis was made public. What else? Now, officials have been saying that Meiteis demands even as the hill area committee Manipur passed a resolution against the order amidst growing opposition by the tribal groups. So what is happening here? Order triggers violence. On May 3, a protest rally against the High Court order triggered the eruption of violence between the valley-based Meitei communities and the hill-based scheduled tribe Kuki-Zo communities, with nearly 180 people killed in the conflict over the next 5 months. The records assessed by the Hindus under the Right to Information Act 2005 showed that Office of Registrar General of India had looked into Meitei's inclusion into the ST list on a request from the Ministry of Home Affairs. It found that based on the available information, what is happening, that the Meitei communities does not appear to pose tribal characteristics. That means these Meitei community people or the people who are coming from these many Meitei communities do not possess the characteristics of tribes. In the ST list on a request from the Ministry of Home Affairs in 1982, it found that based on available information, Meitei community does not appear to possess any tribal characteristic and said it was not in favor of inclusion. It noted that historically the term had been used to describe the non-tribal population in the Manipur Valley. Almost 20 years later, when the erstwhile Ministry of Social Justice was revising the SC/SC list of state and UTs, it has sought recommendations from the Manipur government. Now, what is happening is the Manipur government, then headed by the then chief minister, had said that the Meitei community was the dominant group in Manipur and need not be included in ST list. So, one reason is that it is one of the dominant group in Manipur. It noted that Meiteis were Hindus and assumed the status of Kshatriya caste in the ladder of Hindu caste. So, firstly, it is a dominant group in Manipur. Then the then CM is of the opinion that they hold what they are coming from Hindu clan, and in Hindu they are coming from Kshatriya caste. Adding that they already been listed as OBCs. Some Meiteis are OBCs in Manipur. That means they have already got the status of OBCs, that is other backward caste. The union government, however, did not assume any of these records before single judge bench acting CJ. Now, in the controversial order, the acting CJ that had said, by consent, the main writ petition is taken up for final disposal at the admission stage. Issuing notice to the state union government in the same order of March 27, through which it also decided the writ petition filed by the members of the Meitei tribe union. Now, what's the decades-old criteria? The modalities for inclusion of tribes allow only the proposal initiated by the state government to be processed with the primacy of given to the opinion of the Office of Registrar General of India. That means the modalities which talk about inclusion of tribes should be initiated by the state government, and when it is initiated by the state government, it shall be processed with primacy of RGI, that is your Registrar General of India. The constitutions allow only Parliament to finalize the inclusion by passing the required amendments to the constitution. That means in order to include them, there should be, just a minute, amendments to the constitution need to be done, and amendments with respect to what? Your scheduled tribe orders. And this is when it is in the year of 1950. The criteria followed by the Office of RJ, that is your Registrar General of India, to decide inclusion in ST list were set up in 1965 by the local committee. So the local committee is the one who is deciding the inclusion in the ST list. indicates of primitive traits. That means these are some important things that need to be possessed by the community so as to be examined or so as to be given the status of ST. So what is happening is, first primitive trait should be there, distinctive culture should be there, geographical isolation of the place should be there, shyness of contact with the community at large, backwardness. The same criteria are used to this day. That means even today the criteria remains the same. A proposal to change the criteria for defining scheduled tribe based on internal committee's report was floated in Ministry of Tribal Affairs. After mulling it for almost 8 years, the ministry said in 2022 that it had put the proposal on hold, with officials saying that there was no plans to tinker with the decades-old criteria. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Centralized procurement as a powerful health idea. Imagine that you have decided to go up against the McDonald's in India. The homegrown vada pav will go up against the mighty burger and come out trumps. So you build a plan to have hundreds, maybe thousands of franchises all over the country. They will sell clean, hygienic, and tasty vada pavs in the millions in the years to come. What a great idea! And let us hope that somebody actually does this. But here is a quick question: should each franchisee purchase their own potatoes, or would much rather have a centralized procurement team to do the task? You will quickly realize that there are two central problems to solve: price and quality. Each franchisee conducting negotiations with potato sellers become a problem when it comes to price. The amount of potatoes that the entire business needs to purchase will be more than the amount of potatoes that each franchisee will need to buy. So why do you think will be able to negotiate a better price? So each franchisee conducting negotiations with potato seller is also problematic. Why? Because when it comes to quality, each franchisee might have a different idea of what acceptable quality is, and each franchisee must might have different idea about what makes a good potato. So, but what, but that would then lead to each franchisee's vada pav having a different taste, and that just will not do in a franchisee model. So what is happening in India? Many countries and international organizations have shown that a pooled buyer model for drug procurement addresses many issues that are related to price efficiency, stockouts, and quality concerns. But for reasons that have remained mysterious for decades, the central government chose to ignore the merits of pooled procurement when it comes to schemes such as central government health scheme, Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojna, and employee state insurance scheme. Corporate hospital chains, on the other hand, are well aware for the benefits of pooled procurement. For year and end, they have conducted what direct negotiations with the pharmaceutical companies, and the patients at these hospitals end up buying these drugs at maximum retail price of cost. But that is another story. Now, we cannot help but wonder why many more hospitals cannot team up to form buyers club, benefit from better bargaining power, and then being not-for-profit institutions pass on these cost saving to patients. Now, what are the papers talking about? So, this is a research being done, and that is National Cancer Grid Pooled Procurement Initiative of India. So this research paper talks about was that the viability of just such an idea. So group negotiations need to be done, uniform contracts need to be taken, and finally purchases by a hospital associated with the national cancer grid for 40 drugs resulted in saving how much? Rupees 13.2 billion. That means this paper talks about the viability of an idea where pool procurement would result in saving what? 13.2 billion of savings. Now, without pooled procurement, the cost would have been rupees 15.6 billion. That means when there is pool procurement, the cost or the savings were close to 13.2 billion. And had it not been pool procurement, the cost would have risen to 15.6 billion, and with savings ranging between 23% to 99%. As the author says with quite understatement in the last sentence of their abstract, this study reveals that the advantage of group negotiation and pool procurement for high value medicines. This approach, they conclude, can be applied to other health systems besides cancer. That means the concept of pool procurement, they are saying that this could be applied in all other fields other than cancer, because in cancer they have applied it and they have found it working well. Now we are in complete agreement. Uh, our paper Unifying India's Healthcare Markets makes just such an argument. We know that central government is not consistent in how it converts or how it covers different categories of beneficiaries under CGHS, that is your central government health schemes, your ESI, that is employee state insurance scheme, and under your Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojna. So the same procedure, for example, might be available in one scheme but not the other, and centralized procurement sadly is not yet a reality. It is not that central government is unaware of the benefits of the pool procurement and price discovery. When the government, through the National AIDS Control Organization, procures male contraceptives, it invites tender from private manufacturers and then offers to buy from all those who are willing to match the lowest price. How does the government ensure that the suppliers are not colluding to keep the price high? Now, HHL Life Care Limited, a public sector unit, that is, it is a PSU with the highest manufacturing capacity in India, provides a benchmark price. All the bidders know that if they are not competitive on price, the government will just procure all its requirement from HLL and they will be left with unused manufacturing capacity. That means there will be a lot of products will be left out unused. The government can follow this model for most of the drugs it procures. It has many pharma PSUs that can provide benchmark prices and also ensure that the government has leverage. Such leverage ensures that the government is not forced to buy from private manufacturers, given that there is a competition from PSUs which may supply at a competitive price. Now, what else? The issue of better quality. Now, pool procurement, okay, understood, but will the quality be ensured? So, finally, in addition to cost saving, okay, in addition to cost saving, buyers club can ensure better quality by having the supplies tested independently rather than having to rely on the drug regulator to ensure quality. This is not a new idea. This is standard operating procedure for buyers in many developed nations. Centralized procurement or pool procurement is a simple yet powerful idea that has the power and the potential to reduce cost, ensure better deployment of funds in other areas related to healthcare, availability of life-saving drugs in this country. It is an idea with both theoretical backing and empirical validation. It is an idea that India should implement a scale as soon as possible. So what they are saying is that pool procurement by the central government when it comes to drug procurement can prove to be a revolutionary factor. Why? Because this would help in saving also, and if we cover other sectors other than the cancer one, it would also help in ensuring better quality and saving. Fine. Now moving on to the next one. Okay, so when tigers and jackals get the same protection, so many ecologists have insisted that an inordinate number of species have been included in the new schedules of WPA, that is Wildlife Protection Act, without an objective or replicable process. So, what is the issue of conservation? The first issue with this listing regards conservation itself. The Wildlife Protection Act was originally intended to regulate the use of various species, that is, restrict trade, hunting, police, the trafficking of species. The original act is written in this form, with research being an exception under the hunting clause. The listing of species has two direct effects. One, even if it were to have benefit for conservation, species would have been prioritized. Listing hundreds of species of mammals and over 1,000 species of birds and innumerable other taxa means that it is unclear whether resources should be allocated on the basis of the list. Now, the second one, what they are saying is every action has consequences. For example, the Tree Preservation Acts of Kerala and Karnataka proscribes the felling of native trees. Instead of promoting conservation, these act disincentivize plantation. Owner from planting native trees, promote exotics such as silver oak, and they can cut anytime they need to. So what is happening here is, in case of Wildlife Protection Act, a particularly absurd consequences of listing has been in the presence of spotted deer in the schedule. What is its impact on the people? Now, the second more important issue concerns the impact on the people. So, various Schedule 1 species pose enormous physical, mental, and economic harm to people. Crocodiles in Andaman, leopards in certain pockets, and elephants everywhere kill people, destroy their livelihood, and leave lasting psychological impact. And yet, people are told, believe by elite conservationists, that they should learn coexistence. That means there's a lot of economic damage that is being done, and apart from the economic damage that is done to the people, now the environmentalists or the conservationists are telling them for or giving them the view about how to have peaceful coexistence. The Wildlife Protection Act serves to enforce this viewpoint. The new act elevates wild pigs nilgai to Schedule 1, which means that the few states that have now allowed limited culling of problematic animals may not be able to retain that policy. The Wildlife Protection Act also has a restrictive view on hunting and the use of animals, even when it has been done traditionally. Restrictions on the use were imposed because those species had declined in numbers, but by the same logic, regulated use should be considered when animals are abundant. The third issue is that despite the support of many individuals in the forest bureaucracy, the paperwork involved in getting permits for research is tedious and time consuming. Environmental NGOs will have a harder time. Why? Because getting permits for research and conservation, even for common species such as barn owls, it is not clear whether citizens science will be able to proceed. Perhaps no one can be stopped from casually observing a Schedule 1 species while birding, but can upload the data to an international portal such as eBird. Unfortunately, while lamenting the impact of Wildlife Preservation Act on their work, what is happening is some ecologists have often been insensitive to the larger issues of play. What else is happening? See, many ecologists in India have been guilty of the same, swimming in and out of distance report field sites, taking knowledge and biological materials and leaving no benefits. The act that poses hindrance to our work is a much graver threat to the lives of the people that it impinges upon. In reality, all three issues, what are those? Conservation, people's issue, and research, need to be attended to with different degree of urgency. Those who live those whose life are at stake need to be safeguarded first. Plural animal rights arguments that results in the loss of human lives and and livelihood need to be disregarded. Second, management actions for species and habitats need to be tailored to ecology, species, biology, and context. Often, this calls for research or at least regular monitoring by independent agencies. Finally, both citizens and ecologists have a right to observe nature and collect data if they so desire, as long as it does not cause undue harm to population and follow the basic principle of ethical treatment to animals. So, all in all, what they want to say is that there is uh, what should I say, that there are a number of species that have been included in the schedules of the Wildlife Protection Act. So what is required is, and that is also without any logic for that matter. So what is required is that we need to recheck the reason behind including those species into the list and what kind of benefit it is posing onto the society. Okay. Just, President gives away film award. Actor Waheeda Rehman gets Falke Award. The Honorable President gave away the National Film Award for 2021 under various categories at 69th edition of the ceremony. The prestigious Dada Saheb Phalke Award was conferred to the veteran actor Waheeda Rehman. Speaking on the occasion, the President said, Ms. Rahman had established herself at the pinnacle of the film industry with her art and personality. That means she has done some incredible work in her field. Even in her personal life, she had made her mark as a woman of dignity, self confidence, and originality. She set an example that women themselves should also take the initiative of women empowerment. So, the president has congratulated the other awardees as well. She said the award ceremony painted a picture of diversity of India and the unity inherent in it. So, what other than that, one of the union ministers said that today nothing is regional. If the content is good, regional content will find the global audience. Apart from this, he said that the government should stood shoulder to shoulder with the industry in its effort to counter movie piracy, and it had brought in the Cinematograph Act. Other than that, S.S. Rajamouli's blockbuster Triple R took away 6 awards. Gangubai Kathiwara by Sanjay Leela Bhansali bagged awards in the 5 categories. Okay. Then the best male actor was given to this, and best female actor awards were given to the respective person. The Kashmir Files bagged the Nargis Dutt Award for best feature film on the national integration. Which one it was? It was the Kashmir Files. The Indira Gandhi Award for best debut of a director was given to Meiteis, and the best direction to Godavari. Triple R got the award for the best popular film providing entertainment. Uh, Apart from this, how synergistic barriers are affecting progress on SDGs. Lamenting the lack of progress on various sustainable development goals, world leaders at SDG Summit in New York on September 18 and 19 once again reaffirmed their shared commitment for what? To eradicate poverty and end hunger. They recognized that the world was on track to meet only 15% of its 169 target that make up the 117 goals, and have committed to an SDG stimulus of $500 billion annually. While this political declaration need to be welcomed, commitment to the Agenda 2030, there is little to inspire confidence that there will be greater progress. A 2023 report of the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development estimated the investment gap in SDG in developing countries to be greater than $4 trillion. Of this, nearly $2 trillion need to be directed towards energy transition alone. These staggering figures representing the estimated sum of investments required by specialized agency responsible for tracking. What is the lack of synergistic actions? A fundamental statement in the 2030 Agenda document detailing the SDGs recognize the indivisible integrated nature of 17 SDGs and their contribution to the three pillars of sustainable development. A lot of academic literature has also focused on synergies and trade-off that exist in the pursuit of specific SDGs. The journal has identified five types of synergies, and what are those? Firstly, those arising from resource allocation. Second is creation of enabling environment. Third is co-benefits. Fourth is cost benefits and saturation limits. A recently launched UN expert group reports entitled "What Synergy Solutions for a World in Crisis, Tackling Climate and SDG Action Together." So, what are the barriers for a small scale application? They said that policy making processes are generally robust with a clear view on synergistic outcomes. Multi-stakeholder approaches to policy making are practiced. For example, in India, the push for renewable energy started with both energy security and air pollution in focus and received an impetus with climate commitments. However, it hasn't been able to leverage the health benefit arising from lower air pollution to strengthen arguments for greater incentives for renewables. Now, what else is happening? See, while in the energy departments, the targets is in gigawatts, primary health centers had need in kilowatts, leading to the neglect in energization. Simply recognizing interlinks without a robust analysis and understanding of institutional barriers. This in turn should promote the country to strengthen the environment for synergistic action and make transparent both the opportunities and limit to synergies arising from SDG interventions. Every new investments we initiate today leading to a high carbon outcome. Establishing the domestic energy resources we have for reasons of enhancing resilience to shock. Apart from this, weighing India's own vulnerability to climate change impacts. On the other hand, investing in clean energy options could have a significant synergistic impact on air pollution, human health, increasing the attractiveness of such interventions. So, what is happening is that, see, lamenting there is a lack of progress on SDGs, and what is the reason behind it? So, they say that we have this target of eradicating poverty and removing hunger, but the policy making processes are very robust, and the reason being that the outcomes are very synergistic. Why? Because multi-stakeholder approaches to policy making are practiced. Now, what they are saying is that there have been a simple recognition of interlinks without a robust analysis and understanding institutional barriers won't yield the outcome the countries desire. That means simply having institutional mechanism will not yield the result that is desired. So there are certain synergistic barriers that need to be checked so as to bring in efficiency or increase the progress of SDGs. Okay, so this was about SDGs. We have covered same-sex marriage. Then we have done the Dada Saheb Phalke Award. Okay, we have done the powerful health idea. Okay, thank you so much. So I shall see you tomorrow.